So in this video, you're going to see how to create rock layers and some fossils or objects found within those rock layers. This is going to be just a brief tutorial. You obviously can do many different things and be creative in the way you've created the layers, but I'll show you some of the basics. Couple tips and tricks for adding a little more to it, and then you'll be able to, have enough information to play around. So, kind of somewhat of a end result here is we have some different rock layers and we have some different objects in there. And obviously, if I click on one of those little objects and pull them out, I can use arrow keys or zoom in. You can see we have a fossil there. We have a fossil there. This could be considered some sort of fossil. It could be some object that we found. We'll bring that in. I see something a little peeking out down there. And if I move closer and click on that and use my arrows, I have an arrowhead there. So I have these objects hidden in my rock layers that we can determine age based on the rock layers that we already know ages of items that were found. Here on the top, we have something. I can click that and move that out, and there we go. We have an entire whale fossil that's emerged. So this is kind of like the end result of one of the ways of where we want to get. So to get there, all right, and I will start with selecting everything and removing. All right, to get there, in its most simplest sense, a rock layer is a flat layer that we want to include. So I can take this box and drag it out. Okay, if you have a mouse, using Tinkercad is very easy. With the touchpad, not as easy as a mouse, but still the same. You can click and drag the different corners. So this is using my touchpad. Click and drag the corners to extend the shape. So maybe we just want to represent layers and we don't want to worry about anything else, just square layers. We can use the corners to drag things out. This little pyramid, you'll see in the next step, will raise and lower the object. But this square in the middle is the height of our layer, so we don't want to make it too big. We can choose that high. If you're using the touchpad, one of the easiest ways is to use this cube, click and drag this cube to get different perspectives. Touch screens also with a single finger. I'm just touching this with my finger on my touch screen, moving that around. Two fingers, when I have two fingers on my touch screen going around the circle, it does something like this. Okay, does something like that. One finger not touching any particular object, just off on the side, allows me to change my plane, just like we used on this rectangle over here. So one finger over here, or even one finger on my square, I can change this. But two fingers, a single finger on the object moves it around. Okay, so you'll get used to that. And obviously the mouse can do different things. So I created my first layer. I'm going to leave it red. If I want my other layers to be the same size and shape, I can do a Control-C to copy it, and then Control-V to paste, just like anywhere else. Now I have this second layer that I can manipulate, but I need it to be stacked on top. So the way that we stack it on top, right, is that pyramid that I showed you. That pyramid, when we click and drag, that raises and lowers the height of that layer. So I can make it just so it's right on top of that layer, slide it over. Up here, I have some options. Let's make it a different color. Obviously, we want our layers a different color. I can actually even make it thicker. Maybe it deposited more material that year. I can do again. I'll make 4 layers. Control-C, Control-V. We raise it up a little bit. We can move it over. Okay. We can bring it down a little. It's a little less as thick. It's a little thinner. We can grab this. Control-C, Control-V. We raise it up. Make our 4th layer, drag it over, and we can change the color on that. Let's go there. Okay, so now we have some 4 basic layers, right? It's just a square. All right, now we need to add some items in there. So obviously you can go ahead and create your own fossils or items many different ways. Scribble here allows you to When we click on that and draw it out, it opens up this little window to draw something. So I can do this draw shape, and I can draw any shape I want, right? So maybe this is a spear or something, some sort of object, I don't know, whatever, just some random shape. And then I can click done, right? And now I have this object here that I drew, and I can resize it. Now you see if when I grab a corner, it makes it kind of all different kind of sizes and shapes. If I knew I liked this shape and I just wanted to keep it, make it smaller, but the same dimensions, if you hold down the shift key and drag a corner, you can see now it stays in the same kind of dimensions, just smaller. And then I can drag this over. So let's say, all right, let's just say that this object was going to be found in one of the layers, okay? I can move it over, and I want it in this yellow layer. So remember, if I want it in that yellow layer, I'm going to take this pyramid. Let's raise it up. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Right, move over. And now I can click it and drag it into that layer. I can hide it completely, but I want to know something's there. I can kind of just drag it over there. And now I have this object in the layer that I can later pull out and investigate. All right. That's using the Scribble. You can use obviously any of these shapes and drop them right in. You also, and there's other shapes, hearts, stars, rings. There's also this little menu here where you can go, and there's some different shape library that you can click on. There's different characters and creatures and things you can use. There is also one of the things in the printables, there's a Smithsonian option. And we have a couple different things here. So I have a Triceratops skull, okay, that I can hold down shift to shrink down a little bit. Right? And maybe this guy was in my very bottom layer. Right? It's older, so we can move it. Let's raise it up a little bit. You can use your arrow keys too to manipulate objects. Right? So we'll have that guy sticking out of that layer. All right. And you could choose any other kind of objects. Design them yourself, or find some there. There's also the ability, if you go to just the Tinkercad website, the initial website where you log in to Tinkercad, one of the options is gallery. If we click gallery, you're going to have this little search button up here. And maybe we wanted to see a spear, like an old spear. All right. Maybe we wanted to find this in our layer. If I wanted to use this in my design, I can click on it. I can do copy and tinker. And I can use some of the existing designs that are out there. So there's my spear. I can click on this, do a control, right? Make sure I get everything, right? Control C, copy it. I can go back to my design, right? And I can just do a control V. There's my spear. Again, I can hold my shift key to make it smaller, keep it in the same perspective, right? And now I can drag it into my layer. And that I want. Let's say it's going to go all the way over into my green layer. And there we go. And it's sticking out of my rock layers. All right. So I got 3 items in there for these layers. Now, if you wanted to get a little fancy and kind of maybe you'll have one of these layers being cut by another layer. I know that's something that happens with rock layers. So let's just take a copy of this, Control C, all right, Control V. So I have this other alternate layer. I'm going to change the color of it to, let's just make it a dark blue. Now, if we have this thing cut, we also can see these arrows here, right? Those arrows there, arrows here. we can use these arrows to tilt our planes in different directions. So if I'm going to have this plane cut another plane, right, we can move that in and manipulate this just like we did everything else. So controls, we can have this plane go here. We can tilt it in different directions. We could bring it smaller, bigger. We can control C, control V, copy it. We can stack this up, right? Just like before, just like we did with our other planes. Make it a different color, but obviously these planes would probably be the same colors as those. It's just showing how they were moved. So there's different ways you can do different things with different layers. I'm going to remove these just so we're back to the basic. And maybe you had this, you wanted this different, not just a basic square. Maybe it's cut by the ocean. What I may do is I may go to basic shapes, choose my scribble. I'll click there. And maybe my ocean, oops, we want to draw shape, this icon. Maybe my ocean looks like that. All right. We click done. You can see here, there's my little ocean. And I want it to, I'm going to make it a little bigger. All right. Bigger. I'm going to raise it up so it's basically the same size as this. All right. If I want to cut put my ocean there, you can see how it overlays. One of the options here is a hole, right? So you have the solid or hole right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this first, Control C. So I have my ocean right here, ocean selected, Control C. Then I'm going to go to hole. I'm going to make this a hole. So when I select both of these items, right, so I can click and drag so both of those are touched, you combine them and it cuts out that object. So remember, I did a Control C before. If I do Control V, it's bringing that back. And now that fits kind of nicely right into my design right there. So that's just a little bell and whistle about changing the shapes and using solid and holes to cut things out. But your basic design with your layers and your fossils is just like that. And then we can go ahead and investigate our fossils. We can pop them out, make them bigger, see what they look like, etc.